Hey there, and welcome back to Truth Talk Thursday. I'm your host, Jenny Kimmel, and if you've been following my podcast, you know that episode 4 of Momma Drama and Trauma takes us into week 3 after I discovered the betrayal that shattered my world. This week was a turning point, not because things got better, but because the fog started to lift, and I was finally forced to look around at what was left behind. Today, I want to go even deeper, not into just what happened, but how I felt, what I learned, and what I know now standing on the other side of the pain. Loneliness, the kind that makes you question everything. You know, people talk about loneliness after betrayal like it's just being single again. But the kind of loneliness I felt, it was soul deep. It wasn't just that I didn't have a partner in the house anymore. It was that I didn't know who I was without the role I had played for over 20 years. Wife, partner, fixer, peacemaker, provider, support system. I had been all of those, and I did all of them well. But suddenly, I was standing alone with just myself, and I didn't even recognize who I was. The house felt louder when it was quiet. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was deafening. It echoed everything I had lost, everything that had been ripped away from me without warning. I had people. I knew I had all my people. My mom, my sister, my sister-in-laws, they all showed up, they all checked in, and they all loved me in every way they knew how. But no one could crawl into the silence with me. No one could sit inside the stillness of my heartbreak. No one could hold the weight of the ache that lived in my chest every single night. I could be surrounded by love, family constantly reaching out, making sure I was okay, and still feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, free falling into something bottomless. Because no one else was living this exact heartbreak. No one else knew what it was like to look at the person you trusted most in the world and didn't even realize who they were anymore. No one else understood how strange it felt to still share parenting, logistics, and moments with someone who had just broken your entire world apart. I think that's what made it feel so unbearably lonely. Even when people were around me, even when they were holding me, there was this quiet, invisible gap between us because they could comfort me, but they couldn't fix it. And deep down, I knew this was mine to carry. I had to feel it, I had to walk through it, and that made the nights darker. It made the mornings harder. It made everything feel heavier than I thought I could bear. Dr. Christy's role in my healing. Week 3 was also when Dr. Christy became a huge part of my healing journey. I've mentioned her before, but this was the week everything started to shift for me because of her. With her, I learned something I had never really understood before, that my body had been holding on to years and years of negative energy, unspoken pain, and unprocessed emotions. I thought I was handling everything in my head, but what I didn't know was that my body had been carrying the weight of all of it silently, heavily for years. The emotional release sessions with her were unlike anything I had ever experienced. She gave me the tools to finally let my body release what my mind couldn't process yet. She showed me how to breathe through the pain instead of fighting it, how to feel it without letting it consume me, and how to move it out instead of letting it stay stuck. There were moments in those sessions where I felt lighter than I had in years, like I was finally letting go of the pain little pieces at a time. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. I felt safe, and I realized just how much of myself I had been holding inside, afraid to let it unravel. Dr. Christy also taught me something I didn't even know I needed to learn: grounding myself. I discovered that I have control over myself, over my energy, over my responses, and over my peace. And maybe the biggest lesson of all of this was I will never give that control away to anyone else again. She helped me understand that healing just isn't in your head, it's in your whole body and your whole being. And when you finally learn to listen, to breathe, to release, you realize you're so much stronger than you ever thought you were. Finding connection in the loneliness, healing after betrayal. And then there was this unexpected connection. Talking to her husband for the first time. This was something I'll never forget. It wasn't just about answers, it was about validation. It gave me someone who could sit in the exact same storm with me and just get it. It's such a strange thing finding comfort in someone you never thought would be a part of your story. But he was the only other person who knew what it felt like because he was living it too. We compared pieces of the puzzle. I learned more about who she was, about what was really going on behind the scenes. And as painful as it was to hear, having someone else confirm what my gut already knew made me feel less crazy and less alone. There was such an unspoken understanding in those conversations, a kind of safety in knowing I didn't have to explain the pain because he was living it too. For the first time, I wasn't completely alone in the chaos. And here's the thing, as strange as it sounds, this betrayal set off an unexpected ripple in my life. What's wild is through this awful, gut-wrenching situation, I've met so many incredible people I never would have known otherwise. Through this experience, not necessarily through him, but just by walking through this pain, I've crossed paths with some incredible people. People who've become my anchors, my sounding boards, and my safe spaces. If none of this had happened, I never would have met any of them. People who have stepped into my life at a time when I was breaking and somehow helped me start putting the pieces back together. Some offered information, some offered understanding, and some simply sat with me in the heaviness without trying to fix it. And I'm grateful, so deeply grateful that they came into my life. It's this strange mix of pain and unexpected blessings. As much as I wish none of this had ever happened, I can't ignore the fact that I've crossed paths with people who now feel like they were always meant to be here all along. It's a strange kind of gratitude to hold, to lose one relationship I thought would last forever, and yet to gain so many meaningful ones in its place. Friendships that are deeper, more honest, more rooted in understanding and truth than anything I've ever known. Out of so much destruction, these connections have been one of the unexpected gifts. A reminder that even in your deepest heartbreak, life is quietly weaving new people and new love into your story. Rebuilding trust in yourself. Here's what no one tells you. The biggest betrayal wasn't that he cheated. It was that I stopped trusting myself. I kept asking myself over and over, how didn't I see it? Why didn't I listen to that little voice that whispered something was off? Was I really that blind? And then my mind went somewhere darker. I started questioning my whole life with him. Had he done this before and I just never knew? He worked out of town 6 to 7 months out of the year, and that thought alone could have sent me spiraling down a rabbit hole I might never crawl out of. But for my own sanity, I knew I couldn't live there. If he had already done it before, there was nothing I could do to change that now. I had to stay focused on the only thing I could control, myself, my healing, and my future. Still, the doubt crept in everywhere. If I couldn't trust my own instincts in my marriage, the relationship I thought was the safest place in my life, how was I supposed to trust them in anything? It shook me to my core. I questioned my judgment about everything, parenting decisions, friendships, where I put my energy, even how I spent my time. I realized I had spent more than 2 decades trusting him more than I trusted myself. Now I had to start from scratch. I had to rebuild that trust from the inside out, and it wasn't just about learning to trust people again. It was about learning to trust myself again, maybe for the first time in a very long time. That's where Dr. Christy came in. She didn't just help me release the weight my body had been carrying. She gave me the tools to ground myself, to find my center, and to stop giving away control of my peace. She helped me reconnect with my intuition, the part of me I had silenced for far too long. And every single time I honored that inner voice, I rebuilt a tiny piece of myself. Every time I said no when I wanted to say yes just to keep the peace, every boundary I set and actually kept. Every moment I listened to my gut instead of shutting it down, brick by brick, I started putting myself back together. And here's the beautiful part. Those new friendships we talked about earlier, the ones that came out of this chaos, they were part of that rebuilding too. These people reminded me what safe relationships feel like. They showed me what honesty and trust can look like, even in unexpected places. It's wild to think about it now. Betrayal took so much from me, but it also handed me something priceless, the chance to learn to trust myself again, to rebuild from the inside out, stronger than I had ever been. Finding my voice even when it shook. Week 3 was when I started to use my voice again. Not loudly, not confidently, but quietly and honestly. For a long time, I had lost my voice. Whether I gave it away, whether I believed it no longer mattered, or whether I simply forgot who I was, I don't know. Maybe it was all of them combined. But I do know this. Somewhere along the way, I silenced myself. And in week 3, I began to find my voice again. Not in some grand, bold moment, but in small, fragile ones. I started journaling like my life depended on it, because in some ways it did. There were pages I wrote through tears, pages I couldn't read back because the pain was too raw, pages that held the rage I was too scared to say out loud. But writing saved me. It gave me a safe place to pour out the storm inside me. And it slowly gave me back something I thought I had lost forever. My voice. Not the voice that tries to be perfect, not the voice that keeps the peace at the cost of itself, but my voice. So even if it shook, even if I cried halfway through, even if the words came out messy and imperfect, I started saying what I needed to say. To him, to myself, and eventually to all of you. This podcast, this space, this Thursday Truth Talk, this is my voice, and I will never lose it again. The other side of week 3. Some of the hardest times for me were the moments when I was sitting in a quiet house alone. For the past 16 years, my home had always been filled with the noise and chaos of 3 loud boys. The laughter, the arguing, the stomping up and down the stairs, the sound of video games in the background, that was my normal. And suddenly, there was silence. A silence I wasn't used to. A silence that pressed in me so heavy it almost seemed unbearable. But I had to sit with it. I had to feel it, and I had to take in the reality that this was my new life. And it was never, ever going to be the same. That was hard to process. That was hard to come to grips with for me, because silence has a way of echoing back every fear, every doubt, every ache you've been trying not to feel. But here's what I want you to know. If you're in it right now, if you're sitting in the loneliness, questioning your worth, doubting your instincts, wondering if you'll ever stop crying, I see you. I was you. And I need you to hear me when I say there is life on the other side of this pain. It doesn't come quickly. It doesn't come without work, but it does come. And every time you choose yourself, every time you say no to what hurt you, every time you speak your truth, even if no one claps for you, you are healing and you are rising. You are becoming the version of you that this world needs. The truth I didn't want to face. Here's the hardest truth from week 3 that I can finally say out loud. I wasn't just mourning the man who left. I was mourning the version of me who thought he never would. The woman who believed her loyalty would protect her, who thought love meant sacrifice, who thought being a good wife would always be enough. The woman who thought he was her forever, that we were going to grow old together. I was mourning the woman who pictured decades of memories still to come. The one who saw her family as one year after year with her husband, her kids, and one day her grandkids all gathered around the same table. I was mourning the woman who believed we would stand side by side as our sons got married, celebrating together the way we once celebrated our own vows. I was mourning all of those dreams, all of those futures I thought were ours that suddenly weren't anymore. I was mourning her too, because she deserved better. And even though losing her felt like another death, a death of everything she believed in and trusted, it also cracked something wide open. Because in that loss, space was made. And in that space, someone new began to rise up. Someone who would no longer beg to be enough, but who would finally see that she already is. And if you're listening right now and you're mourning that version of yourself too, the one who thought forever meant forever, the one who dreamed of a future that never came to be, I want you to know you're not alone. I see you, I feel you, and I believe, just like me, you will rise too. Week 3 broke me open in ways I never saw coming. It was lonely, even with people around me. I felt like I was free falling, carrying a heartbreak no one could fully understand. But that same heartbreak, it also cracked the door open to who I'm becoming. And I wouldn't trade this version of me, the one I'm fighting to rebuild, for anything. If any of this resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need it too. Tag me, message me, reach out. We're not meant to do this healing thing alone. And as always, you're strong, you're worthy, and your story matters. Until next time, take care of you.